Hello, so this is my project for Mrs. Arriaga's language arts class, and I'm going to be talking about this book. This book took me forever to read. It's kind of long. It's not the longest book I've ever read, but it's pretty long. So it was taking a long time and I was freaking out because I thought I was going to be able to finish in time to finish this project. However, I did read the whole thing. I got it done, and I'm here to talk about it. So, this book is called The Librarian of Auschwitz by Antonio Iturbe. This book tells the story of a 14-year-old, Dita Adler, who, like so many others, faced the hardships of the extermination camp during World War II called Auschwitz. Dita was forced to survive here just because she was a Jewish person. During this time, Dita was given the opportunity to watch over 8 objects so dangerous they could get the entirety of Block 31 killed. Books. The home of these books was Block 31. Block 31 was seemingly a place where the children of Auschwitz would go to play and sing, but in reality it was a secret school, a place where knowledge thrived even when nothing else would. That is why these books are so dangerous. They contained knowledge. To the Germans, knowledge was a thing that could spark dangerous ideas in a Jewish person's mind. To them, Jewish people weren't supposed to be trusted with such a powerful thing that knowledge is. Dita is forced to walk on the tightrope between life and death in order to protect the knowledge so important to the prisoners of Auschwitz. So obviously this book already, you can tell, has a very heavy and intense storyline, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about that storyline today. So, in the exposition, we meet Dita Adler. We learn that we are in Auschwitz. The book starts out with kind of a bang. There's an inspection in Block 31, and we meet Dita as she's running to collect the books that her job is to protect. And that's the exposition. We also meet a few other members of Dita's family, but it's not really that big of a deal aside from Dita, Block 31, and Freddie Hirsch, who is the director of Block 31. We meet him. So that's pretty much it for the exposition, which isn't very long. And then we have the rising action. It is very long. It makes up a lot of this book, like most books. So, Dita has a flashback to the founding of Block 31 during the inspection. And then we also have a flashback to when Dita was asked to be the librarian of Auschwitz, hence the name of the book. And that was basically when Freddie Hirsch was like, we really need somebody to look over these books. And she was like, you can count on me, which was very dangerous because she could get herself killed. I mean, books were like having a weapon in Auschwitz. Dita has an idea to make her library more accessible. She decided that she would have the books on the roof of Block 31, which was a huge risk, and she would have the books on her because during the inspection, she had to hide the books under her dress, and she made it away by a miracle. So she had to ask for pockets for the inside of a jacket, and so that way, if that ever happened again, she would have them in her pockets, and she could distribute the books easier. So she asks the seamstress of the camp for pockets, and she gets them. So that makes it way easier for her to be a librarian. So then Dita has a run-in with Dr. Mengele shortly after acquiring the pockets. Dr. Mengele is very deadly. He does lots of things, and he was a real person. He did terrible things in Auschwitz, and he is mentioned in more than one books, like Elie Wiesel's Night that I read in this class. And so Dr. Mengele tells Dita that he's keeping an eye on her, and that is a huge red flag because, I mean, people could die. So it's very dangerous for her, and now she has to be even more careful being the librarian. So with this new fear instilled in her, Dita considers giving up her librarian position. So, as she goes to tell Freddy that she's going to give up being a librarian, which she's very disappointed in herself for doing, but she does feel like that's what she needs to do to stay alive. She sees Freddy talking to who seems to be an SS. So her trust in Freddy is kind of broken. She feels extremely betrayed and she's very scared. And throughout this time, Dita's love of books is gradually revealed. And then Dita finds out that the SS that Freddy was talking to turned out to be his boyfriend, kind of. And that Freddy isn't betraying the Jewish people, but he is in fact a homosexual, which she's a little disgusted by, but gets used to in the end. And this does affect Freddy's fate later. So, Dita's father becomes sick, and Dita decides that she needs to talk to her father to either give him some strength or at least talk to him one more time before he passes away. So she decides to dress up as a boy in order to visit her father. And I've taken a lot of notes, as you can see. But so Dita goes to a teen in the camp, Milan, who's a boy, and she uses his jacket to go visit her father. And unfortunately, her father dies. Then, shortly after this, Freddie Hirsch kills himself because he felt very, kind of disgusted with himself because at this time it wasn't, a normal thing to be gay or homosexual or LGBTQ. But it was, not good. So he's asked to lead an uprising and he gets scared and he's just having all these feelings. So he ends up committing suicide, which is a very sad part of the book. Then, on March 8th, 1944, the family camp prisoners die. And the next day, there's this beautiful scene in the book. And this isn't very important to the plot line, but it affected me. So, basically, the prisoners, they get burnt into ash. And then they get kind of rained over Auschwitz, and then all of the prisoners are it's the family camp, the people that left us, they're coming back. And the first time I read that, I almost cried. It was really sad. So then throughout it all, Dita continues to read and distribute books in secret, and she meets a boy named Ota Keller. Soon after, there's a selection. And in these selections, they basically the Germans choose which prisoners are going to die and which are going to keep on working. Now, the left is the people that are going to go into go die, and on the right are the people that are going to keep working. Her mother gets sorted to the left, but she goes to the right with Dita, and everybody's like, oh my god, but the officer was distracted and he didn't notice, so her mother miraculously survives. So shortly after the selection, they get transported to this place called Bergen-Belsen. And they soon find out that in Bergen-Belsen, people don't work, they just try to survive. Because here, the conditions are so bad. They get basically no food, no water. I mean, at least in Auschwitz, they would get bread, but here, no. So, they do occasionally work, and it's just to handle, a giant pit of bodies, basically dead people. And Dita is called a few times, and she is very traumatized by this experience, and she feels that if her mom has to go through this, that her mom won't want to keep going. So when her mom is called to go work with the bodies, Dita actually steps up for her. And this was a huge risk, but she does survive. In Bergen-Belsen, Dita finds her sister, Margaret, who earlier in the book we thought was dead. So that was a huge plus, a happy part of the story. And it continues to be miserable in Bergen-Belsen. So, we finally reached the climax. So, towards the end of the war, the camp, like, Bergen-Belsen closes. It's, like, locked off. There's death everywhere, excrement everywhere. It's disgusting. It's cold. Dita is almost going insane. And just when we think that all is lost for Dita and her sister and her mom, they're freed by the British. And it's a miracle, a miraculous part of the story. And during the following action, Dita's mother passes away, and this is very short following action, so she basically gets to see Otto Keller, and this is an interesting thing. Otto Keller is based on Otto Kraus, and Otto Kraus is her future husband in Dita's actual life. So Antonio did change a few parts of Dita's life, of course, to spice up the story. So it's not like a true retelling, but it is very close. But anyways, so the character Otto Keller is based on Otto Kraus, who would be Dita's future husband. And in the resolution, Dita finds Margit, her sister, years later, and everything works out well for her. So it does have a happy ending, which is good. And although she did go through so much, and we do find out that she's a very brave girl. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about the conflict, the theme, and my personal opinion of the story. So, the conflict. The Dita goes against the Germans' corrupt society by breaking the rules and protecting the books that are so important to Block 31 and the prisoners of Auschwitz. If the German society, or even some of the prisoners, had found out about the books, Dita could have been killed. This is the conflict. Society threatening her to stop, even though she kept going. This is why I believe that it was a man versus society conflict, because Dita was going against the corrupt German society. The theme. I believe the theme is knowledge is worth more than anything in the world. And if you can protect knowledge, all is not lost. Because that is a constant message that the story, that the characters that kind of let go of knowledge, they unfortunately passed away. And the characters that held on to knowledge with everything they had a good ending. And I mean, the books were kind of a symbol of light throughout the story. So that's why I think that's the theme. And in my opinion, this book, it changed my life. It gives me courage, and whenever I feel like I'm having a hard time of anything, I remember Dita and how she persevered. I will recommend this book to anyone who is interested, and I love it. I'll definitely read it again in the future and pass it on to my friends and family. I think the messages are so important, and I do typically like that genre of historical books, especially pertaining to World War II. I tend to enjoy them a lot. So I don't know if that's just a me thing or if they're actually really good books. So anyways, yes, this book is magical and I love it. And Antonio Irtube originally wrote it in Spanish. So I can imagine that in Spanish the wording was even more beautiful, because in English it was gorgeous. And I know that, of course, not everything you can say in Spanish can be said in English, being a Spanish speaker myself, and it must have been beautiful in Spanish. So that is my project on The Librarian of Auschwitz, a beautiful, beautiful book.